Hello, welcome to the Reframing Mindset podcast. We are clear my head of the thoughts that are preventing clarity to practice my speech, among other things. Episodes range from informative knowledge to funny stories about my experiences, and in the future, maybe include interviews. So subscribe and enjoy. Episodes drop every other day. Okay, so welcome back to Reframe Mindset Podcast. My name is Constantine Brooks. I know this episode is going to talk about, my bad handwriting, that became infamous, that throughout my old school days. It was basically by, like your signature. Yeah, bad handwriting was my signature. And that was all outside of basketball. I would have been known, yeah. So yeah, before we start, obviously, that's one of the reasons why I kind of like this podcast thing, because one of the reasons I might say I can attribute my bad handwriting is because I don't really like to write, and it's you know it the writing got really when I reached university, because we are all writing from primary school, high school, and then university. But when I got to university, and then the exams. So some of the majority of the courses that I'm doing for my degree is your right is a essay and multiple choice. So for the essay you have to write a lot, a lot. I write a lot in a certain way, and I usually about 3 hours or so, 3 hours to basically finish the exam. And you might say, okay, 3 hours is a lot of time, but based on the questions and what they expect, it can take a lot of time, because sometimes they include drawing and such like that. So it's a when you're in the position, you understand why they have 3 hours for it and such like that. But so back to the story now. So about that writing was always a thing, and to me it wasn't bad. It was I could understand it, but I think the reason why it was bad is because over time I started to write smaller, very small. So if was a teacher usually said, "Oh, I need glasses to actually read this," and such like that. So that was so it got I write small and I write close together. And then, as I said, I don't really like writing, so I write pretty lazy. So it just looks like a bunch of scribbling. if if you're not me, if you're not really the person, because while I was writing, I'm basically by high school, which they writing kind of become infamous. We started to do dictation, and what was dictation? Dictation is basically where the teacher basically talks about what the notes that she's going to give us. So basically speaking to us, and then we hear it and then write it in our books, and that's how we got notes. And that was kind of preparation for the university, which was basically lectures, where lectures they don't give us dictation and notes. They basically just come in with some slides and basically just speak on the topic that they're going to talk about, show us some graph and example and such like that, and just leave. And then it's up to us to basically jot down the important notes that we need for when we are studying. And it was for that reason where basically I went through all 3 years of my university. We basically one 5 subject book. I barely write any notes, because one day usually have the PowerPoint slides that we can download from the school website and such like that. So I really ever wrote notes. Basically, when it ended up, I only write. It was only about one book. I only used one book for all those 3 years of university, and I never even finished the book. That's all little notes I read for those 3 years. Yeah, but back to the bad handwriting and such, So So by high school now, you get a general idea for my writing was. So what usually happened was basically every time, sometimes we have to every time when they're marking my paper, that like no. So when they're doing the test, we won't see the teacher when they're marking the paper. So I just get bad grade and such like that. And I never really really cared about the grade that I got, cause my thinking was basically, even if my handwriting was bad, I usually was doing enough to actually get over 50. So they must can actually recognize enough to give me over 50, and that was basically the gist of that. But usually when we have like classwork now, and I actually go up and give my paper and such like that, teacher usually call me and said, "Oh, what is this?" I would say, "Oh, this," and it's like, "Really?" Really? I was like, "Yeah, that's how bad the handwriting was." So basically all my high school thing was gone. And then in university now, I went to university with some of the people that I actually go to high school with. And even though we went to university, sometimes we never really have the same class, but we might be doing the same class, the same course, but sometimes we're not in the same class. We do different lecture days. And that my bad handwriting usually became so infamous that there was this one scenario where two of my friends, like we were in the same lecture, and they were talking about how the lecturer. So like we were in the second year. So basically you don't know that I done my exam first year, pass, and then basically made it to second year. So two of my friends were talking about how the lecturer was talking about this person, that basically that did so well, did well on the exam and such like that, did well on the essay and such like that. But the thing about it is, his handwriting was so poor, so poor. And they said that when they heard that the first that came to them was me, which we basically can't really prove, because when you do the test, you don't get bad paper and such like that. But but that's how infamous my bad handwriting was. Where basically they just assume that it was me, And but yeah, that's basically the point I was saying. And basically after that, after I left university, I really write. When I started the real world, I kind of tried to start journaling and write down some stuff, and that was good for a while, and then I eventually stopped. And then only now when I basically write was basically like so things like opening bank accounts, um putting my signature and stuff like that. Also, that I really write anymore, and I might write sometime in the future. In that, mostly what I use now is my phone app, my app phone, the notes app on my phone. So basically, that's basically what I do most of the time. So writing to me is, maybe if it's something important, I actually write again. But also like that, I know I can type, so and I have this podcast and things. So yeah, so writing is going to become a rarity, but I still have to write sometime, for signatures, opening bank account, because I still open bank accounts, you know, when I can, because the more the merrier, It's best to actually have multiple. This is my opinion. I don't really know if it's right or. It's best to have multiple where you can just spread out the money that you gain or such like that, so you can put some in this, some in that, some in that. So if one goes down, you have multiple. Because if you remember one of my previous stories, one of the reasons that I never had money when I actually went on the date with the girl, was because the bank that I used that had my money wasn't working the day. So basically I had no money that day, So to me, that's one of the reasons why opening multiple bank account where you see people with multiple debit card and credit card and such like that. I think maybe that's one of the reasons why they have it, But yeah, this was basically a short episode, and yeah, look forward for the next episode.
Well, this is the end of the episode. Thanks for watching and look forward for the next episode. To support this podcast, go to anchor.fm/cssb/support or become a sponsor for this episode. If you have a product that you want to have more exposure, DM me on the Instagram page, Reframing Mindset Podcast, or on Twitter at ReframingP. Either way would help. Thank you regardless for listening, and here's a preview for the next episode.
In March, so that would mean that we made it out of February, and so this would basically be a February update, or end of February update, yeah, which basically I'm going to tell you about how my February went, and my estimation can say it has gone great, It has gone great, I made still healthy and well, this month was a bad exercising month because I kind of stopped during the middle of it, and yeah, so based on the scale, I only lose 1 pound, but sometimes when I go on the scale, it's still like close to 225, and if you've known, I would have started the year weighing 230 pounds, so I'm still at 225, so